Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this lovely Thursday morning for our Stage Stories winter performance. We have a special treat for you today in that we have two of our classes combined. And so you're going to hear, I think, 11 stories this morning from our incredible writers from our Creative Aging program. I'm the manager of community engagement and the lead artist at the Wallis, and started these programs over 2 years ago now. And once the pandemic hit, we went completely to Zoom to do our classes and our performances, but we'll hopefully be returning back to the Wallis and having the classes in person again soon. So I hope all of you that are out there will look to join a class after you see this amazing work that the writers have done. So what we're going to do is we'll hear from our morning class first, and then I'll introduce our teacher for the second class, and then we have a few students from our afternoon class who will follow. So I'd like to introduce the first writer from our morning class, Aviva.
Hello, my name is Aviva. The title of my story is Buses. I was writing to the prompt, noise. The whine and screech of buses on the fume-filled main road are rhythmical in their stop and start, start and stop. Their routes are well worn and established as they absorb their passengers deep within, only to spit them slowly back out onto the crowded sidewalk. But these buses are not all the same. They are a good reflection of those they hold within. The red double-decker ones contain men and women in fancy fashion, sitting high above, closer to the heavens, they believe, superior in their whitest whiteness. And then the blue Patco buses. They are only half the height of the double-decker red ones. There is no upstairs in those buses, no plushness in their plastic seats, reminding their commuters of their rightful place. These travelers are squeezed into a sardine can, black skin touching black skin, overlapping in the sticky heat. I do not see the buses or the people as I sit in the back seat of our family car, enjoying the ride, oblivious to what is happening all around me. It is 1968, my friends, and this is South Africa. Suddenly, I am awakened from my blissful reverie by the screech of tires, too fast to stop. A bus on a mission. Take them in, move forward, spit them out. A black man runs across the street, desperate to catch the last bus home. The man and the bus collide, and from my spacious seat, I see the man lying still on the asphalt, partially hidden by the wheels of the bus. His chicken dinner, that only minutes before was in his arms, bundled in brown paper and string, now is exposed, strewn across the street. Pink and fleshy chicken legs that cannot
It seems we had a technical difficulty, so let's have Aviva come back on and read just the last maybe third of your story, Aviva, so that we can hear the end. Thank you.
I'll go from, I do not see the buses or the people as I sit in the back seat of our family car, enjoying the ride, oblivious to what is happening all around me. It is 1968, my friends, and this is South Africa. Suddenly, I am awakened from my blissful reverie by the screech of tires too fast to stop. A bus on a mission. Take them in, move forward, spit them out. A black man runs across the street, desperate to catch the last bus home. The bus and the man collide. And from my spacious seat, I see the man lying still on the asphalt, partially hidden by the wheels of the bus. His chicken dinner, that only minutes before was in his arms, bundled in brown paper and string, now is exposed, strewn across the street. Pink and fleshy chicken legs that cannot run, that cannot fly away. Now I would like to introduce our next writer, Marjorie.
Thank you, Aviva. Good morning. My name is Marjorie, and my story is entitled The Tarmac, and my prompt is a place from my past, paying attention to detail and my senses. The Denver to Burbank trip was short. Blue sky and puffy white clouds filled my window seat view. Thoughts about reuniting with family filled my head. I was excited to be on that plane. My mind wandered as I sipped cranberry juice and snacked on salty peanuts. The year had passed so quickly. Emotionally, it felt like decades. I wasn't sure what to feel when I arrived. Leaving the security of family and friends, I had changed. In some ways, I was reinventing myself. Interrupting my thoughts, the loudspeaker came on. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. Please take your seat. I returned my seat back to its upright position and buckled in tight. Picking up my napkin and empty cup, I secured my folding table tray. The stewardess was wearing a navy blue dress with a matching hat and sturdy pumps. As she walked down the aisle holding a bag for trash, I threw mine in. The smooth descent began. I felt the air pressure on my ears as the plane slowly moved closer to the ground. Feeling the force throughout my body, it pushed me deep into my seat. Bounce, screech, bump. The sound of brakes was loud. Braking hard, the vibrations jiggled me about. As we touched ground, the packed jet cheered. Energetically, I jumped up and joined the other passengers as we all gathered our belongings in anticipation of disembarking. The door of the plane opened, revealing the landing and stairs that led to the vast black tarmac. Beckoning us, the line of people and I began our procession. A chilly, soft wind hit my face as I took my first step from the plane onto the landing. That's when I saw them, Dory and Mom, standing on the tarmac. Their enthusiasm was bursting as they welcomed me, waving wildly with broad smiles, trying to get my attention. I could hear them yell, "Margie, Margie!" Ecstatic, I was grinning ear to ear, tears of joy streaming down my cheeks. Mom's short brown hair was now gray. I felt like a rock star with adoring fans. whatever hesitations I had were picked up by the diesel-scented air of the tarmac and slowly drifted away. And now I would like to introduce our next wonderful writer, Kemsley.
Hello, world. My name is Kemsley. The title of my story is Night Patrol. I wrote to the prompt, sensory. Eyes shut, stars brightened by cleaved moonlight, tap and run like a child's game of hide and seek on my eyelids. I breathe deeply, silently, deliciously. My inhalations deliver a buffet of swirling scent and taste on the back of my tongue. Dust, dung, pomegranate, the scent of skins after a workout, not unpleasant. My uvula snags the scent of onions. The camp is full of resting heartbeats, yet I am awake. Braying announces kindred souls. Swaddled by Mother Nature, they too have not yet succumbed to Earth's night lullaby. I think back to December 31st and my friend Celia's social media post inviting one and all to join her on an amazing tour. Well, I made it. The only one who took her offer. Earlier this evening, our motley crew, bellies full, trekking out in darkness to sit on toasty dunes. A warm, soft breeze kisses my shoulders, face, arms. I hug my knees close. My bare feet burrow deep and are rewarded with cool dampness beneath these dark, warm sands. A distant howl is heard and answered by a nearby howl. A bucket of braying commences and ceases just as quickly by a low, audible command. I breathe in. Softly, my nose registers something familiar. Inhale. Exhale. My taste buds lick the scent of potatoes fried with onions in a cast iron skillet. Oh, salivation, do not start with me. Fighting temptation to follow the walk, I try to relax into sleep, but men wrapped in yards of beautiful floating cerulean patrol. I've never slept in the open under a night sky ceiling. My eyes peek apart and I am awestruck by the octopus ink blackness and want to reach out and touch the velvet texture littered with diamonds spotlighted by the amorous moon. My breath caught short as an orchestra of snoring battles surround. Lucky them. Zipped in my bag, prone, I gaze dreamily, a half a world away from home. Cleansing breath, I exhale, smiling at Mr. Moon's departure as Miss Dawn unfurls her palette tendrils. Camels baying announce the slate of day. And now I'd like to introduce Susan.
Hello, my name is Susan, and the title of my piece is Europe on $5 a Day. The prompt I was writing to is I remember. My two college friends, Linda and Ilona, and I are off to Europe for the summer of 1969. We traveled to 10 countries, riding third class on trains, sleeping in cheap hotels, and living on baguettes, cheese, and coffee. It was a gentler and more naive world than today. It was a young person's dream come true. In Paris, a tiny, wizened, lecherous old man was our concierge. One evening, the concierge eyed me as I walked in alone. As I got ready for bed, there was a knock on the door. Standing there was our concierge with a bottle of Coca-Cola and a glass. He uttered one word, "Party?" "No," said I, firmly closing the door. Later, I passed a man as I walked back to my room from the toilet down the hall. 2 minutes later, another knock. I opened the door a crack, and there he was speaking German, which I didn't speak, but his meaning was clear. "Party?" He was quickly dispatched. The city of Vienna offered us an economical but spacious room in a brothel. At first, it seemed odd that all of the room keys were always hanging on hooks by the front door. But after seeing the same women walking up the stairs at various times of day with different men, we got the message. Nevertheless, we had no problems, and our room had a lovely view of the beautiful city. In Rome, in a bar, we watched on TV as the US moon landing was happening. Everyone, Italians and Americans, cheered as Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. It was a glorious, historic moment in a historic city. Each place we went was a smorgasbord of visual delights. We returned home with few purchases, but memories for a lifetime. And now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Susan.
Hi, my name is Susan, and the title of my piece is A Woman's Fight. I wrote to the prompt, Encountering Someone from My Past. In 1978, Roman Polanski fled to France. The first test tube baby was born. Jim Jones told 900 of his disciples to commit suicide. And I enrolled in UCLA's Human Systems PhD program. By my second quarter, Human Systems was in shambles. The department, once at the forefront of organizational development, began circling the drain. Our renowned chair fell ill. The department erupted like the Wild West in need of martial law. And as word spread throughout the academy, a feeding frenzy ensued. Harvard and Stanford began their raids, decimating our faculty. Our core course, designed to peel away our defenses and expose our true identities, passed as our seminar. The professor held the class in his Laurel Canyon retreat. When he came on to me in his office, I ignored him, but during the group sessions, he tore me apart. The environment was hostile. I began to wonder why I wanted a PhD in human systems anyway. In response to the human systems insanity, I transferred to the well-structured psych department with its core curriculum and banal department names. I thought I had escaped the zoo. That is, until I needed a signature from my new section head, Dr. X. His door was ajar. I knocked. Without looking up, he mumbled, "Come in." I introduced myself and asked if he would sign my petition. He glanced up at me and complimented my flat stomach. My jaw dropped. Somewhere in our conversation, he told me his wife was away at a conference and asked, "Would you like to have dinner with me tonight?" My jaw dropped again. I looked him in the eyes and again asked him to sign my petition. He scribbled his name and reluctantly pushed the petition across the desk. Fast forward to 2003. Disney Hall was opening. My husband and I had incredible season tickets. And as we found our seats, I glanced up, and sitting right behind us was my old section chair, Dr. X, and his wife, who was obviously in town that night. And there I sat, with a private grin, a published author with my PhD and quite a successful career. And to think, I did it all without ever dining with the good Dr. X. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Lynn.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning. My name is Lynn. The title to my piece is Reunion, and I'm writing to the prompt, Someone from the Past. I wake up from a nap to see the seatbelt sign on, indicating we are about to land. I'm starting to feel sick. I'm about to see my father, whom I have not seen or talked to in 50 years. It is 1998, and I am on a flight from San Antonio to Sacramento. The plane is at the gate, and passengers, eager to disembark, file past me. I take my time and remain in my seat. I have a strange excitement building up inside of me. I'm thinking about the tattered picture that I've been looking at for years. It is one of a handsome man with dark hair, big smile, with lots of white teeth. The man is dressed in an army uniform. My heart is pounding in my ears. I have to turn down the volume in my mind. I take a few deep breaths and muster up the courage to exit the plane. I walk out into the bright light of the terminal. I see my sister. She has flaming red hair. My nickname for her has always been Baby Huey. She was always such a klutz. Standing to her right is a tall, handsome, gray-haired man with a great smile. I know right away who it is. I would know him anywhere. I gave my sister a big hug. She looked to her right as if to say, "Here's our dad." I had a nice embrace with my father. He said, "Boy, it's been a long time." And I agreed with him that it was. I was thinking, we have 50 years to catch up on. The three of us leave the airport to start our reunion. And now I would like to introduce Ty, our next writer.
Hi, my name is Ty, and the title of my story is And Then Again, and it was written to the prompt, I remember. I remember. No, I don't. I don't remember when people die. I just know they're dead. When people ask me, when did my mom Margaret Joyce Vance, or my dad, Stephen Vance, or my no-nonsense older brother, Greg Al Vance, or my coolest of cool oldest brother, Kenneth Glenn Vance, or even my younger brother, the stylish guy, Stephen Zachary Vance, or actually Zachary Stephen Vance. When did they die? I don't know. I just know they're dead. I have the same challenge when it came to celebrities who were important to me. Michael Jackson, Prince, Richard Pryor. I don't remember when, I just know they're dead. Oh, I do remember when my close friend, Eric Jerome Dickey, passed. I remember the month and the day in the year. It was January 2021. I don't remember the day. I could look it up, but I won't. A few years ago, I sat at a pub in South Pasadena where I had an interesting conversation about my memory of death dates with a guy named Paul. Paul turned out to be a licensed mental health therapist and suggested that I did know when important people in my life died. He said the details are embedded in an emotionally charged memory. Well, as far as I was concerned, those details can stay buried because the only notable emotion I experienced when asked when someone I cared about died was embarrassment. You see, I believe I should know the when, the where, the how of their deaths. My siblings knew. I used to think that they remembered because they were more caring and more thoughtful than me. Paul, the therapist, then said, meaningful, emotionally crammed moments, good or bad, are stored deep in our subconscious, in our psyche. And when not acknowledged in our conscious mind, the memories manifest into unexplained behaviors, like a sudden craving for a plate of lasagna cooked by your mother or a favorite aunt. He also said this behavior usually occurs around near or on the date, the event connected to that person. I paused and thought about it. Then I reflected on how could I use this information constructively to live my best life? I decided that when it came to thinking about those important people in my life who passed, instead of remembering the last day on this earth, I'm going to choose to remember their first. And now I have the pleasure of introducing a fabulous instructor of our class, Debra.
Thank you, Ty. So let's have a big hand, virtual hand for our morning class. Woo! We can hear the cheers in the stands. And I would now like to introduce the teacher for our afternoon class, Victoria Kemsley.
Hello. Wasn't that amazing? I just think it's so great. And now I'm really pleased to present the afternoon class of stage stories, starting with the writer, Bonnie.
Hi, thank you, Victoria. My name is Bonnie. My story is entitled Trouble. Noise and trouble were my prompts for this writing. Usually the noises of the city are generated by some event that is related to trouble. A bank robbery, street racers, and even strange noises that sound like distant fireworks or gunfire. All are alarming and frightening. But I couldn't get the word trouble out of my head, because to me, trouble is the nickname of a baby elephant in Namibia. We were on safari in the Damaraland region of Namibia. Our guide had taken us to see the local herd of elephants. We followed them in our Jeep, slowly, quietly, while they fed on nearby trees. The matriarch of the herd had with her a small baby elephant, approximately 4 months old. We first encountered him as he was playing with a small log that was about 3 feet long. The guide said he was learning how to master his trunk. Even though it is instinctive, the small ones still have to learn how to use their trunk. He rolled the log, lifted it, and smashed it onto the ground, where it shattered. Since it was now in small pieces, he no longer found it amusing. Then he turned his attention to our Jeep. He ran towards us with ears flaying and acting out a played charge. He then went up to the Jeep's grill and started to smell it with his trunk. He followed that up with a nuzzle and a sniff on the tire and wheel well. The Jeep shook. As he worked his way up the side of the car, I was videotaping him. Now, with him so close, we could tell his age by a bit of fuzzy black hair still on his back and chin. He started to sniff around the open top of the Jeep. He sniffed my leg with his trunk, and then he ran back to Mom for safety. Mom could care less. She trusted our guide, and she knew he was in no danger. Then he went over to annoy one of his slightly older siblings who was trying to take a nap in the shade. He bothered him to the point that the poor boy had to get up to keep the baby from climbing all over him. Then he put his trunk around the little guy's neck, forcing him to stop and giving him a time out. That's when my fellow travelers and I gave him the name Trouble. As we left, to our surprise, he gave us a farewell noise in the form of a short trumpet. And now I would like to present the next writer, Gloria.
Go ahead, Gloria.
Hi, thank you, Bonnie, very much. Hi, I'm Gloria, and the piece that I'm reading today is called Memories of Florida, and I wrote to the prompt of places from long ago. Every December during Christmas vacation, my family would drive to Florida. Mom and Dad and the 4 kids would pile into the Oldsmobile 98 one morning in late December and drive from central New Jersey to Florida. The trip took 2 overnights, one in North Carolina and one in Georgia, to get to Miami on the 3rd day. I remember one particular trip in the early 50s when we were on the road and all of a sudden an enormous snowstorm blew in. I was scared. My dad, all 6'1" auto parts guy that he was, pulled over, got out of the car, trudged through the blinding snow, opened the trunk of the car, took out the tire chains, and proceeded to jack up the car, put on the chains, lower the car, and we drove off in the snowstorm. We were all totally confident that Dad had done the right thing and would get us to Florida safe and sound. Each year we made the trip, there was one piece of business that I never quite figured out. Finally arriving in Miami,
We stayed at a B-rated hotel that was always directly across the street from the hottest hotel in that season. When the Algiers Hotel and its Nasherai was the place on the ocean, we stayed at the Rendale Hotel right across the street. When the Sanssouci and the Saxony were the hot spots in Miami, we stayed right across the street at the Cadillac Hotel. My memories are all of fun, the beach every day, playing in the sand with the whole group, my father picking me up and throwing me around in the air. So much fun. And building sandcastles and trying to dig our way to China. Each night we would get all dressed up and go out to dinner at a grown-up restaurant. Vacationers dressed in flowered attire, and the streets were crowded with palm trees and the scent of hibiscus flowers all around. The most exciting event was New Year's Eve. Big party, festive outfits, noisemakers, hats, dancing, fireworks, and even Shirley Temples with a maraschino cherry for the kids. Midnight was spectacular. New Year's Eve partying served to make it a little less bittersweet. And the next morning on New Year's Day, we packed up, got into the Oldsmobile, and headed back north, back home to New Jersey. And now I'd like to introduce an excellent writer, Peggy.
Peggy, we need to hear your sound, please.
Oh, thank you so very much, Gloria. My name is Peggy, and my piece is called First Floor Front. And it was written from the prompt of your earliest memories. I had never been up so late before. Mama was giving Daddy the extension cord as he handed our radio to Mr. Sullivan, who was putting it on the table right outside our window. Suddenly there was music everywhere, and lights everywhere, and people everywhere. Tony, the bus driver, pulled up and parked the bus and ran across the street yelling up to Rini Savio to hurry up down so they could dance. The music was very loud, and lots of soldiers were being surrounded by men shaking their hands and women laughing, crying, and hugging them. Marty Flanagan leaned heavily on his cane, and Jimmy Barry had one sleeve pinned to the shoulder of his uniform. "Mama, can I go outside?" "All right, but stay where I can see you." Outside, I saw the table was already filled with all sorts of food, and there were more such tables all up and down Grand Avenue, as far as I could see. Mrs. Savio brought down trays of antipasto. Mrs. Peterson added Swedish meatballs. Mrs. Meyerowitz presented bagels and lox, but they were really fish. Mrs. Papadopoulos brought souvlaki from the family butcher shop. Mr. Kelly brought buckets of beer from the Shillelagh, the corner tavern. The Goldbergs brought cokes and candy for everyone from their candy store. Each plate was announced by the provider, including Mama, when she put down a mountain of roast chicken, coleslaw, and potato salad. Georgie Chalusky and I sat on the stoop with our plates and cokes and watched. Suddenly all went quiet as from the radio came the sound of Walter Cronkite announcing the Star-Spangled Banner, and everyone stood up and looked at the flags on each of the windows and sang or wept silently. Then suddenly the radios all blared a song called Little Brown Jug, and all the grown-ups started dancing. But Georgie and I only watched Tony and Rini because they were the best. Then I heard Mrs. Sullivan whisper to Mama as she watched Rini, "She's terrible loose, that one." And I hoped someday someone would say that about me when I danced. Tonight, everyone was so happy all over America. The only arguments heard were about who would win the World Series, the Yankees or the Dodgers. I didn't know if I wanted another war, but I hoped there would be many, many more block parties. And now I'd like to introduce imaginative writer, Eileen.
Thank you so much, Peggy. My name is Eileen, and the name of my story is Shidloitz, and I wrote it on the prompt, A Place from the Past. In the summer of 2008, my father, brother, sister-in-law, and I traveled to Poland to find the town that my father's parents and 7 brothers and sisters came from. We piled into the sardine can that we rented in Krakow and took off on the road to Warsaw. We easily found the exit for Shidloitz and pulled into a small, nearly deserted village. There was a square dominated by a large Catholic church, a restaurant that was closed, a town hall, and a few small shops. There was also a castle. The castle had been the property of the Radziwill family, whose prince had married Jackie Kennedy's sister Lee. In contrast to vibrant Krakow, we were unable to find anyone who spoke English. Since the restaurant in the square was closed, we started looking for a place to eat. My brother's wife noticed a sign on a wall reading Restauraha Primagor and an arrow pointing down the street. Primagor was a modern mustard yellow building. My father and I went to use the restrooms, and I overheard my brother talking with a woman in English. Ordinarily, we serve lunch, the woman said, but we are having a wedding reception this afternoon and we are closed. My brother told her that we had traveled from Los Angeles, that we were Jewish, and our father's family was from there. She then insisted on making us lunch. She and her husband spoke English because they had lived in New York for 9 years and then returned home to build their dream. During lunch, the wife told us that the town historian had written a book about the Jewish history of the town. It was in Polish and English. She went and got her copy and gave it to my father. Before World War II, the population of Shidloitz was 73% Jewish. At the time of our visit, there were no Jews except the dead ones in the cemetery across the street. After lunch, we walked among the headstones, many leaning precariously, all with barely legible Yiddish inscriptions. They were worn faint by weather and the time before the Holocaust. We knew members of our family had to be buried there, but it was impossible for any of us, including my father, whose first language was Yiddish, to read any of the names. Later, I reflected that these happy coincidences would never have happened if the restaurant in the square had not been closed, if my sister-in-law had not seen the sign for Primagor, if the owners did not speak English, and if my brother had not explained the reason for our visit. There is a Yiddish word called beshert, which means it was meant to be. This was certainly beshert. And now it's my privilege to invite all of our wonderful writers to come back for a Q&A.
All right, as we're welcoming everyone back, let's take a bow, virtual bow to our audience. Thank you so much, audience, for tuning in. I wanted to take this opportunity to let the audience ask questions if they have some questions about the performance or about the class itself. And I'll start off by asking the class, why'd you sign up to take this class? What possessed you to take a class for 10 weeks with a bunch of people you don't know to tell your life story? So anyone who'd like to answer, raise your hand and I'll give you the floor. Lynn.
Thank you. Well, I just recently retired from working for the same company for 35 years. I moved out here from Texas to live with my daughter, and I needed something, and I've always wanted to tell stories about events in my life. So my wonderful daughter put me in touch with you all, signed me up, and I've totally enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lynn. Lynn, it's been a total joy having you in class. So thank you so much. Eileen, go ahead.
Thank you, Deborah. The reason why I decided to take the class is because my best friend, Gail, who many of you know, started taking the class before I did, and she's taken 3 classes thus far. And I also recently retired from a very long career as a personal assistant in show business, and I have always wanted to write a show. I sing. People have always said to me, you know, you should write. And so this seemed to be the perfect entree, you know, to starting that process. And I love the idea of writing memoir, and the class has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed everyone in my class, and I sure enjoyed all the stories from all the writers. So it was a privilege to be here, and thanks.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you so much. Okay, so go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, I've been starting to write because I felt like I had 9 lives already, a cat life. And I was leaving memories for my children, basically my grandchildren. And I thought it would really be good if I really knew how to write. It would come out better. So that was my influence. Thank you. And I've enjoyed it 100%.
Great. Well, I'm so glad, Bonnie. I'm so glad you found us. And so I have a question from the audience. If you've never tried storytelling before, what was your biggest challenge being in the class? Go ahead, Lynn, and then Marjorie.
My biggest challenge was being shy. I was never shy at work or in my job, but not a speaker to say. So yeah, I started out really shy, but I think I've overcome a lot of it.
I think we saw a big change. Don't you guys think in class with Lynn? It's like she was so, and now you're just like, I'm ready to perform. Give me my show, give me my spotlight. Let's see, someone else had their hand up and I missed. Oh, Marjorie, go ahead, Marjorie, and then Kemsley.
I think the actual class, I didn't feel like it was challenges in a way. Practicing for this today was a challenge and trying to figure out how to do it. And thank goodness for photo booth on my laptop so I could practice and watch myself. So yay.
Did a fantastic job, Marjorie. Great job.
Thank you both, Debra and Victoria. You are wonderful teachers and you made me feel confident in this process, which was fun and scary. So thank you.
Great. Kemsley, you had your hand up.
I did. This is recorded, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I have to give a big shout out to my friend Kelly McIver, who tends to send out things like this and share and go, hey, this looks kind of cool. She sent it and I looked at it and it did look kind of cool and it ended up being very cool. I'm a vested union actor, and with COVID and pandemic, I couldn't make that bread everybody was making. I had to do something else different. So this was a lot of fun to actually see that I know that I have stories. I just didn't know that I had a book. And now taking this 10 weeks, I know that I have from these 300, the best 300 words, making it happen in 300 words has been so meaningful for me. So thank you. And thank Kelly McIver.
Thank you, Kelly McIver. We love it. Thank you for marketing us. So I wanted to just tell the audience that what Kemsley is referring to is all of the stories. They have an assignment every week. And one of the challenges is that you only get 300 words to tell your story. One of the reasons for that is just the fact that we just need to hear everybody's voice and we don't have a 10-hour class. So that way, and it's also a great way for writers to start to hone down and say, what's really important in this story? And one of the hardest things to learn as a writer, I know I've learned, is that every word of yours is not precious. You can let it go. It's going to be waiting for you in another story. So you can throw away some of those 1,000 words that you wrote and have a 300-word story that tells the story even tighter and clearer. So that's part of what the assignments are. We do have classes starting again in May for stage stories, which is this class. Then the next class, which is called Beyond Words, which is not only writing, but also has a bit, I'm going to say an artistic component to it, but you don't have to be an artist. Very important. You do not have to draw. So that, I just want to get that in everyone's head. So hopefully many of these students will take that class. And then we have an upper level class, which is Stage Stories 2, which is for students who have already taken Stage Stories and Beyond Words. So slowly but surely, we're building a really incredible creative aging program at the Wallis. And so all of these guys are part of the family now because they've been in those classes. So I'm trying to see if we have any other questions here. I wanted to ask, what was the most, what did you enjoy, either what did you enjoy writing most about, or what was the most difficult prompt? You all heard them mention a prompt at the beginning of their story. They were all given the same subject to write about. But as you can see, people took very different avenues in telling the story because, of course, they have extremely different lives, right? So Ty's ready for the challenge. Go ahead, Ty.
Well, first of all, let's go back to that 300-word thing. I'm a talker, and when you told me I had to write 300 words, I was like, oh, this is not going to work for me. However, it turned out to be the best lesson I had gotten from you. Truly, that editing aspect of writing was something I was looking forward to learning about, and that you delivered that. So thank you for that again. And as far as the prompt that got me, that was difficult to write to, was the one that we had called A Special Place, I think it was. It had me thinking, was that right? Did I get it right?
Write about a place, just a place with a lot of sensory, use all of your senses and everything about around it. Yeah.
Right, where it became a special place. Because by
you
the time,
special place. Okay.
Yes, because by the time I identified the moment, man, it was centered on, of course, my home when I was growing up. So, and I never thought about that. So it's one of those things I appreciated. These prompts that I thought were initially artificial actually became really good devices to prompt up, to stimulate an idea that had been lying dormant that I would never have gone to. So again, another one of the things in the class that I personally would never have gone to on my own that I gained. So again, thank you for that.
You're welcome, Ty. Thank you. Peggy, go ahead. I know you had a question, and then we have another one in the chat as well. You have to unmute, Peggy.
I don't know why someone who likes to talk has such a problem unmuting. But I have to say, I really I felt this was very motivationally important. One of the things you did was stimulate us to write. Now, I have spent my life saying other people's words. I'm an actress, and still work whenever I can. I'm never retiring. That was for another job. I retired from that while I was doing this one. At any rate, it was the motivation that seemed so important to me, to get me to do something that I wanted to do all along, but didn't discipline myself enough to do. The 300 words, I agree with Ty, is absolutely ridiculous, but that's okay. I'll fill it all in now that they're not looking anymore. But it got me going, and that's what's important. And thank you very much to the Wallis, to the certainly to Victoria and to the class. Part of the reason these class worked is we're all life experienced, and therefore we learned just as much from each other. Okay, I'm finished.
Thank you, Peggy. We have a question in the, or sort of a, it says, so well edited, was a time limit given? And we talked about the 300 words, which is sort of the time limit. To be honest, as a special gift for their final performance, they could have 100 words extra in a bank. So if they wanted to add a few sentences or something to their final performance, they could. So nothing was over 400 words, and we checked. So it was no more than 400 words. And so that was how the final was. The other really important thing is, I don't pick the stories for them. The teachers do not tell them what to do. They've written, I think it's like 8 stories. And so they can pick which one they want to share. These are very personal stories. There's a lot of things that are shared in class that we would only want to share amongst the class because we have a real trust built in the class. But we let the students pick what story they want to share because I think it's really important for them to have the power to decide what that is. So that's what you heard today. Let's see, we have Patsy and then Bonnie.
I wanted to choose another story of media, the prompt that seeing someone you've known in the past, would you say hello to them or would you not let them know? That's the one I wanted to do because that just happened. But my class chose my story for me, and thank you for that. They're like, you're doing the camel one. I'm like, okay, I'm doing the camel one then.
We had a discussion where people could say, because every time I do the class, everybody emails and says, Debra, can you please tell me which one you think is better? And I refused to do it. So I finally said, let's have a few minutes where the students can talk to each other and they say, this is what I remember after the 8 weeks. Oh, you know what? That story you told in the second week, the I remember story, that stayed with me. And so that way the class could give them input as well. And then they decided. So, Kathy, but you have that other one for another time. So don't worry, it's still there. It's still there waiting to be read. So
I do, and I have to say that with the limit that you gave us, you always told us that limit of 300, there were words or there were phrases in there that would lead to a new chapter. And that was really comforting for me, knowing that, okay, I'm gonna only do 300. And I usually stopped at 289 or something like that. And for this one, I used 19 words out of my bank. So I got some for the next time. But I just wanted to say that you are absolutely right, because I would take those phrases and go, okay, that's going to go into another story in the future. So thank you.
But it does. I know that the prompts, like Ty said, they may seem really simple on the outside, but they've been well thought through because they work and I know what it's going to bring up. So what it does is it not only brings up those 300 words, but it brings up all these little nuggets about other things that you remember that then you're supposed to keep somewhere you can find so you can write about them later. If you're like me, you have 47 notebooks and you don't know where they are, but you put them down somewhere. Bonnie, let me get you, and then I think we have one more question.
Okay, I basically wanted to thank Victoria. She kept us all in line, and the positive reinforcement I got while writing for my first time ever doing a class like this. I'm a photographer and I'm an artist in other directions, other media. So this was really, really challenging for me and really terrific. Having to go back into the, the memory files of my brain, my life, and it's really fun, and I'm enjoying it 100%. I thank you so much for this class and the opportunity. And class one, you're amazing too, really.
And hopefully we see you in the next class, because now you've got the writing bug and you want to keep writing.
Oh, you will.
Keep writing, which is great. What else? I was going to say a final thing. Oh, so I don't want to keep everyone, because our performance was a little longer because we had our classes combined this morning. But I want to thank all of our writers who for 10 weeks showed up on time with their assignments, ready to go. It's not easy. And I want to also say, probably one of the biggest things about creating this class for me was about creating community.